You step outside, and the air pushes back against you. Not warm, not hot. This feels like standing in front of an open oven. This isn't a heat wave, the way you remember heat waves. This is Europe in 2026, and the continent is on fire without a single flame. In June, France recorded its hottest day since 1947. Temperatures hit nearly 44 degrees Celsius. That's almost 111 degrees Fahrenheit, in a country where most homes don't even have air conditioning. The Czech Republic broke a record that had never been broken before. Not once, in its entire history. Germany shattered a national record, then broke it again 24 hours later. This isn't one country having a bad summer. This is 12 countries, from Portugal to Poland, from Ireland to Italy, all breaking records within weeks of each other. And here's the part that should stop you cold. This is the second time it's happened this year. The first heat wave hit in May, the second, more brutal one hit in June. Two once-in-a-generation events, 4 weeks apart. So, what's actually happening to Europe? And why does a continent full of modern hospitals, modern infrastructure, and modern governments seem so unprepared for it? Let's start with the mechanism, because this isn't random. Meteorologists call it an omega block, named after the Greek letter, because of the shape it draws across weather maps. Picture a giant dome of hot, dry air pulled up from North Africa. Normally, that air keeps moving, but two low-pressure systems on either side act like bookends, trapping the heat in place. It just sits there, cooking everything underneath it. That's why temperatures climbed as much as 18 degrees Celsius above normal for the season, not 2 or 3 degrees warmer, 18. And scientists aren't guessing about the cause. A rapid analysis by an international team of climate researchers found that heat this extreme, this early in summer, would have been virtually impossible without human-caused climate change. They compared it to 1976, one of Europe's most infamous heat waves. A heat wave like this one would have been 3.5 degrees cooler back then. The nights would have been cooler too. Europe isn't just having a hot summer. Europe is warming roughly twice as fast as the rest of the planet. That makes it the fastest heating continent on Earth. Here's what makes this different from a heat wave in Phoenix or Dubai. Those places were built for heat. Europe wasn't. Only about 1 in 5 homes across Europe has air conditioning. Most housing, especially in the UK, France, and Germany, was built for the opposite problem. Keeping heat in during long, cold winters. Thick walls, small windows, dark roofs. Perfect for trapping warmth in January. A liability in a summer like this one. So people improvise. Cities open up museums, libraries, and public buildings as makeshift cooling centers. In Berlin, authorities used water cannons, the same trucks normally deployed to break up protests, to spray down residents in the street, not for control, for relief. But improvisation only goes so far when infrastructure itself starts failing. Heat melted asphalt around tram lines, sections of highway buckled. In Italy, heat-stressed underground power cables triggered blackouts as entire cities cranked up air conditioning at the same time, overwhelming a grid never built to handle it. In Eastern Europe, it's worse, because war already crippled the energy grid. Some regions are trying to survive record heat with less electricity than they had a year ago. Now, let's talk about the human cost, because the numbers aren't small. Health officials linked well over 1,000 excess deaths across Europe to the heat since late June alone. Most are elderly people, the population most vulnerable to extreme temperatures, but not all. Children died after being left in hot cars. Drowning deaths spiked as people flocked to lakes, rivers, and unsupervised swimming spots to escape the heat. Dozens of drowning deaths in France and Poland alone during the worst days. And this is where it gets uncomfortable. When researchers compare this to the deadly 2003 heatwave, the one that killed an estimated 80,000 people across the continent, they're not saying this is smaller. They're saying this is on the same scale. And it happened earlier in the year, faster, with less warning. The World Health Organization already calls extreme heat a silent killer. Not dramatic, not loud. It doesn't collapse buildings or uproot trees. It just quietly overwhelms the human body, 1 degree at a time, until it can't recover. Here's the trap Europe is caught in, and it's the same trap the rest of the world is walking into. Modern civilization was built around a climate that no longer exists. Cities were designed, insurance was priced, agriculture was planned, infrastructure was engineered, all based on historical weather patterns. Patterns climate change has now broken. Every additional degree of warming doesn't just make summers a little more uncomfortable. It pushes more places past the threshold their buildings, their power grids, and their emergency systems were built to handle. And once you're past that threshold, you're not just dealing with hot weather anymore. you're dealing with cascading failures. Heat melts train tracks, which disrupts transit, which strands vulnerable people indoors without a way to reach cooling centers. Heat drives up electricity demand, which strains the grid, which causes blackouts, which takes away the one tool people had to survive the heat in the first place. One problem creates the next, and the next, until a weather event becomes an emergency across an entire continent. Scientists studying this heat wave used a specific phrase. They said this pattern carries the fingerprints of the climate crisis all over it. Not a freak event, not bad luck, a preview. Because here's the part that should actually concern you. People who study this professionally aren't calling it a one-time disaster. They're calling it the new normal. Heat waves like this are expected to get more frequent, more intense, and longer lasting as the planet keeps warming. What Europe experienced this year isn't the ceiling, it's closer to the floor. Cities built for cold winters are now forced to survive summers they were never designed for. And the uncomfortable truth is, adapting an entire continent's infrastructure, its housing, its power grids, its transportation systems, takes decades. The climate is changing faster than the buildings around us can keep up. Europe just found that out in real time. The question is whether anywhere else is actually paying attention before it happens to them too.